Good evening or good morning when this goes out. Thank you for watching. It is appreciated as always. I've been doing a bit of thinking about what policies would create a landslide for the next government to get in on. Now, this isn't specific to any party. Now, officially and unofficially, currently, I am still a Reform member and voter. That's conditional. Okay, it's not guaranteed. They have to convince me by the next election, but that's my official position. The first thing I want to do is I want to play a clip, and it's about housing. This is policy under the current government, the Labour government, which is meant to be for the working class.
4,500 brand new homes just got taken off the market forever. Here's why that's a problem. They were bought in one deal, £1.4 billion, by US investment giant Blackstone. Those homes, you'll never own them. They'll never be sold to first-time buyers. They'll sit in a corporate rental portfolio managed from an office thousands of miles away. With increasing pressure on private landlords, as discussed yesterday, this could pave the way for institutional landlords. This would be a new housing market, new rental market, homes treated like stocks, bought in bulk by hedge funds, not for families, but for returns. The more housing stock they control, the less chance there is for the average person to own, and the easier it is for them to dictate the market. Think of yesterday's video again. It also means your property, whilst it's usually managed by someone around the corner, is now going to be managed from a property portfolio manager thousands of miles away. They do not care if you're a good or a bad tenant or if you're struggling to pay your rent this month. So, should corporate giants be banned from bulk buying UK homes? Comment below, I want to hear from you, and let's see where we stand.
So there we go. That is under the current Labour government. They're selling off new builds to be rented back to the natives, to the plebs, and they're being sold off to hedge fund managers in other countries around the world. Did anyone vote for this? Is this the change that Labour promised that is going to be delivered? Now look at some housing statistics. Okay, this is for the entire United Kingdom. I'm going to bring this up now. For the whole UK, comprehensive 2024 data is less readily available by many sources. UK-wide completions typically include England, Wales, Scotland and Northern Ireland. England's figures dominate due to its larger population and housing market. To get precise UK-wide data, you need to combine them all. Okay, so here we go. There was about 5,800 completions in Wales. There was about 21,800 completions in Scotland. There's about 7,000 completions in Northern Ireland. Altogether, for the entire United Kingdom, that's approximately, we'll just call it 200,000. It's in that ballpark, 200,000. Alright? Factor in the Boris wave from last year and the year before, that's over 1 million people gross, and about 800,000 net. Doesn't take Sherlock Holmes to say that the demand is outstripping the supply by a fold of, what's that? 5 to 1, maybe even more. And that's not even including people that are already on the list. The policy that any government is coming in should make British homes for British people. That should be the platform. You're only going to get a look in if you're a British citizen on new properties. Any new arrivals don't get any, and no properties are being sold to foreign hedge funds or foreign investors. That would be my idea. And that's something I think Restore Britain, which I'm also a member of, should be looking into to be plugging as a policy in my view. Now we're going to look into something else, okay? Now this is just an idea, this is just a theory. I have had some conversations with finances and financial advisors in Twitter spaces and whatnot. And it's something that they mentioned that rung a bell and it's also struck an alarm for me. And I'm going to go into that in a minute or two. This house, by the way, 124k, it's a 4-bedroom house up in Runcorn, and it's, as I say, 124k. That's a standard house up in Runcorn, nothing to write home about, and yet it's out of reach for many first-time buyers. This wasn't always the case, and especially wasn't the case before 1997. So we're going to go on a bit now, and we're going to go on to this one now. So we've just done that one, so we're going to this one now. Quantitative easing, okay, that is something we could use to make housing affordable for natives in the United Kingdom. There should be legal restrictions stopping foreigners from buying into the UK market. I am advocating for protectionism here. I'm advocating for providing for your own before the rest of the universe. And if you're not got enough for your own people, then what are you doing with your life? And why are you selling off their birthright to foreign investors before you're putting the bread and butter, or what should be the bread and butter of any British government first? As I say, you could do this with quantitative easing. Now, I'm not a fan of fiat currency. I'm not a fan of the quantitative easing that's been done in the past. You can do it in a way, according to these financial advisors that I've spoken to and government advisors in Twitter Spaces. If you fence off the QE, the quantitative easing, and it's for social or infrastructure for the entire country, and it's of national importance, you can actually make a very compelling argument to actually ring fence off that additional money you're pumping into the economy, and it shouldn't hurt the inflation rates. That's what they said, and that's what they said regarding bringing the waterways, the privately owned waterways, the water companies in England and Wales back into public ownership to some degree. I actually made the argument that it should be run like Network Rail, where the actual infrastructure is owned by the British government, but the actual services providing the water supplies locally should be privately run. So it should be a hybrid model. That's what I said regarding the railways, but that's a argument for another video. But similar thing could be done with the QE, the quantitative easing for housing for first-time buyers in the United Kingdom. Essentially, what I'm advocating for here is a rolling back of prices to pre-1997 levels, i.e. before mass migration. Because everybody that was not able to get on the housing ladder before 1997 has never voted for mass migration. And on a basic supply and demand argument, house prices have skyrocketed based on the importation of the demand side of that ledger. So you could do it through quantitative easing, where you underwrite the difference between the loans, between the price of the house and the price that the person could be expected to buy it for. So you could do it that way. And that way, the actual retail price of the house is still going to be the retail price. However, what you are actually doing is you're getting the government to underwrite the remainder of the debt. Now, quantitative easing to underwrite the gap between the prehistorical level of 1990, I'll start again. The QE, or using QE to underwrite the gap between the historical pre-1997 and current house prices, ring fencing that funding as a kind of social infrastructure and structuring repayment forgiveness, like student loans and debt, is politically conceivable and economically innovative approach to tackling the housing pricing and the affordability. So it is something practical that could be done. Now, as I say, I'm not a socialist, I'm a capitalist. This is about levelling the playing field so we're all on the same page. Conceptually, it's possible the government can design a financial mechanism where it guarantees or covers part of the property cost. Similar policy ideas exist, such as shared ownership schemes, help to buy equity loans, and mortgage guarantee subsidies. Writing off the debt if the family cannot repay the additional prices echoes the existing student loan policies, so it's politically palatable and possible, so nobody would be repossessed. You buy your stake, and if you want to buy a further stake in the property, you can do that. If not, the equity basically becomes yours or partially yours. That's the way it would work. And the government would forgive the debt like they do with the student loan. Now, eventually, this would be a temporary or interim measure for the next 10 to 15 years, because eventually the supply would outstrip the demand eventually when we get back to where we need to be as a country. We move on to this particular bit here. This is sound in principle. Why? Because it addresses the root affordability issue, helps buyers access homes for historically fair prices without forcing a crash or price controls. It leverages existing tools. It builds on concepts like familiar and finance mortgages, loan forgiveness, and public policy, QE, for social infrastructure. It balances risk and fairness, State takes on risk or price inflation with conditional forgiveness to protect vulnerable families, and is politically marketable to a broad population. Framing housing as infrastructure and fairness for British families can attract and will attract massive support through the country. In summary, the QE ring-fenced for housing affordability subsidies is politically possible and economically innovative. It would require strong controls between the Treasury and Bank of England, careful design to avoid causing inflation or asset bubbles, transparent communication to manage public and investor expectations, possibly targeting new build homes or combining with supply policies to avoid overheating the market. So there you have it. If this policy was brought in by either Reform UK, Advance UK, or advocated by Restore Britain, it would do something to address the historic imbalance that's grown up since 1997. People in the United Kingdom should be able to afford a house in their own country. They shouldn't be priced out of the market by overseas investors. Other countries do it. New Zealand do it. The UAE do it. Saudi do it. Other countries do it. I think America's becoming more protectionist in this way as well. You should be putting your British electorate first, and especially the people that just want to get on in life and get a home. Whichever, if any, political party had the nous to do this, it would win an election and it would also reshape the country for the British people above the rest of the world. A truly nativist or nationalist government would do this in the blink of an eye. Now, you let me know if you think I'm onto something here, you think I'm barking up the right tree. We get all the student loans for foreign people and people from the UK that are essentially Mickey Mouse degrees. There's no jobs. They spend 5 or 6 years in university and they can never get a job that pays back that debt. And so that debt's eventually written off. Everyone gets paid. The government's in the hole for all that money, and we've got nothing to show for it. However, if you did something like this or something similar to this, not only would you have something to show for it, you build a lot of goodwill with the population and the people that are left behind in the country. These are just my thoughts and ideas. As always, your mileage might vary. Like, comment, and subscribe. Do all that good stuff, and I'll see you in the next video. Have a good day, and thank you for watching.